Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about the business opportunity for gas field operators to make and sell blue hydrogen. My name is Carl Jeffrey. I'm publisher of Carbon Capture Journal and Finding Petroleum in London. So if you operate a gas field, the idea is that there could be a business opportunity for you to convert the gas field to blue hydrogen production. And you can capture and store the CO2 and sell the blue hydrogen to your existing gas customers for a higher price than natural gas. And your gas customers can eliminate their own carbon emissions because they're combusting hydrogen rather than natural gas in their own facility. And you don't need to build a pipeline connection to any new customers. Converting natural gas to hydrogen and CO2 is a well-established chemical process called steam methane reforming. You use the injected CO2 to enhance gas recovery. So injecting CO2 directly into your gas reservoirs to help maintain reservoir pressure and push more gas out so you can make more low-carbon hydrogen. And our company presenting today, ConvertWell, offers services to help you with this conversion process, screen natural gas fields to assess the economics of conversion into blue hydrogen producers, and they bring companies which can advance the conversion project. Our speaker today, Belinda Perriman, is co-founder of ConvertWell. She's a former senior commercial advisor in Shell with 12 years experience in CCS, and she was project lead for Shell's Peterhead CCS project from 2012 to 2013. And she's been supporting the Tees Valley Combined Authority on CCUS and hydrogen, that's in Northeast England, since 2015. So we're going to have a talk from Belinda of about 25 minutes, then we'll take your questions. And I'd like to invite Belinda to start your talk.
Hey, thanks, Carl. Good morning, everybody. It's kind of weird not seeing the names of who's in there, but good morning to all. So our title today, indeed, is a bit of a mission, really, is to take well-loved gas fields, but to turn them into something that is a clean fuel hydrogen, one gas field at a time. So I'll take you through this and really hope to have a barrage of questions at the end, because it is a new concept, but we hope, as we find sometimes the feedback is it's quite logical, but if you find it's not, we really want all feedback, especially from this experienced audience, would be really very valued. So what are we doing? We are trying to build the first projects and an ecosystem around it for this process to decarbonize gas fields at site. And what do we mean at site? We mean at the gas processing site. And our aims are big, is to start a movement where oil and gas companies will realize and see the value of this opportunity to convert from producing, a fossil fuel to a clean fuel that they can sell, indeed, as Carl just said, at a higher price. So yeah, big aims there. And that's what I'll take you through. So the two sort of lead co-founders at the moment, but we have other members around who are helping us and supporting us part-time basis. And, we're very excited about what we're bringing. I do have quite a lot of years experience in CCS and have got a bit of a heart moment when I visited a huge industrial site in the Middle East and saw that you could do carbon capture and still have the benefits and the products from using fossil fuels. So I don't make any bones about that. I think that it is of great value to capture carbon from our existing processes. We have some advisors all around the world. We're a global company, and so we have advisors in different countries, but some people here might have run across our friend Paul Davis, who's very much a leader in the UK on CCS. He's a real expert as well, particularly on financing CCS projects. We were on the Carbon 13 Venture Builder program. That's something out of Cambridge University that more and more people are hearing about. We were actually on the first Berlin cohort with my co-founder, Stefan, being based in Germany. And it was a great opportunity to meet with many other exciting innovations. And please do market Carbon 13 for anybody with an idea that has to have 10 million tons per annum in their sites as a carbon reduction possibility in terms of what their innovation can do. So this audience, of course, will know the problem, but I think this graph isn't shown often enough. So I do include it in the pack, the fact that, in spite of, global best efforts to increase renewable energy, increase alternative energies, even up to last year, we're still seeing over 80% of global energy being met by fossil fuels. And because I imagine most of this audience, that's where their career has been, like my own. In doing that, I feel like it's really good to encourage people to think about solutions that will tackle the 80%. So this is what we are looking to do. The natural gas wedge is the first one to tackle, because gas to another gas, hydrogen, is the easiest chemistry. One can, of course, also convert oil and coal to gas, and then convert that gas to hydrogen. So we could actually tackle the whole 80% with this idea. But before we sort of run away with ourselves, the natural gas one is the focus of this talk. So we're looking to use proven engineering at the gas processing site. So you do use all the existing wells, the processing facilities that takes out any contaminants in the gas, and you install modular carbon capture unit on the back of the hydrogen production unit. So it's quite new that these things are available in modular form, cheaper, to be scalable to the size of the gas field. And so that's where the fact that you're located on site within your license area, then you can put the byproduct CO2 from the hydrogen production back in a couple of minutes to do something really useful. And so it extends the life of the field there, because you're reducing the decline of the gas reservoir pressure. So anybody not from the oil and gas industry, we liken it to this big blue balloon that's illustrated here. So the gas field is a blue balloon, and it is going down slowly, slowly, slowly. But if you put some gas back in again, that's the CO2 back into that balloon, it will go down less quickly. So you'll maintain the health of the balloon, and the life will be longer, and it will produce more gas, but for 100% of it to be converted into hydrogen at the site. So at the end, you do also provide permanent storage. So that CO2 stays in the balloon, so it stays in the gas reservoir. After you've injected it deep in the reservoir, it's locked away for millions of years. So it's easier sometimes to illustrate things, of course. This is a cartoon of an existing gas site with the gas processing there and the wells producing gas. So what we are proposing is that you install this modular equipment and then make hydrogen and sell hydrogen, but then the CO2 is compressed and put back down in the bottom of the gas reservoir. So as you see there, it's on the edge, away from the production wells, down deep where it tends to stay because of the physics. And then the add-ons here is that if somebody is flaring gas nearby from an oil field, associated gas that is, then that can be collected and provide some great extra feedstock into your hydrogen production. But then it can also provide great extra CO2 to help with more pressure maintenance. So all CO2 is good CO2, and even if someone is looking to build a DAC plant somewhere, or if there's a cement plant, you can make them a good offer to take their CO2 away as well, because again, every molecule of CO2 is a good thing for you to help maintain the reservoir pressure of the gas field. So there's a bit of a circle going on here, and selling a clean product with the waste going straight back down where it came from, if you like. So what we say is we're tackling the problem at the source, rather than selling a fossil fuel to all those heavy industries, and then each one of those heavy industries needs to do carbon capture on their unique process. So be that, steel making, or whether it's chemical industry, etc. So we're saying for society, it's better to go back to the source, treat the problem at the source, and then put to market a clean product. So I'd love to hear from anyone in the audience who's heard somebody else doing this, because it's always easier not to be going first. As far as we know, we are the first in the market to be encouraging this process. So, and why it's good is because it's lower cost. And I think, that's where the logic is, that instead of CO2 storage being 100% cost, your CO2 is got these benefits of keeping the production up, and you have energy efficiency where everything is co-located. So you have energy efficiency effectively subsurface because you're pushing more gas out, as well as above ground because of the co-location of all the equipment, and even closer to home, as it were, to our oil industry. The gas processing facility themselves, of course, has energy. That energy at the moment is likely to be having quite significant CO2 emissions, whether it's a combined cycle gas turbine or some other energy provision. That CO2, when you're there, you can also then mop that up, if you like, and collect any CO2 from, or capture CO2 from the existing energy. 24/7 reliability, of course, is a very good benefit of blue hydrogen and what we call upstream hydrogen compared to green hydrogen. So that's what industry needs. They need reliable supply, and weather dependent is tricky. So we offer ourselves as a supplement to green hydrogen, extra volumes, cheaper volumes that can help to build out a network for hydrogen in a country that is dedicated or committed to hydrogen strategy. Quite an important thing, and quite a lot of people, if you're following the hydrogen news, is the difficulty of building up these long lifetime new value chains. Upstream hydrogen uses the existing customer value chain. So today you're selling natural gas in a pipeline to industrial emitters, but who use this gas to make their fantastic products. But they're your customers today, you know them. So if you're in a country that has a hydrogen strategy, has some incentives for industry to decarbonize, then you already know them. They already pay the bills. You're not looking to create new value chains. You can use the existing one. And because the CO2 only goes a short distance within your license area, not across land that needs lots of planning permission, that really minimizes cost significantly of the CO2 transport. But perhaps even as significant is the time uncertainty of getting planning permission to take CO2 away, from a site, sometimes offshore at great expense. So by re-injecting the CO2 or injecting the CO2 straight away, it's quick and simple. Probably the one that needs the most discussion, probably not today, but in terms of how do you then pipe the hydrogen away? And that is several options. It may be hydrogen ready, as a number of the gas lines in the UK are deemed to be, and also in Germany. And then if they're not hydrogen ready, you may reline with plastic, quite a cheap PVC plastic. It's not high technology, and particular concerns, of course, would be around the pipeline joints, and these can be solved by putting in a continuous pipe made of plastic. And you could also blend hydrogen, as has been planned in the UK potentially. Not ideal. You want to be selling pure hydrogen at a great price, but blending is a possibility. Or you lay a new line up to the next hydrogen line in a country that's building a hydrogen network, such as Germany and UK. I should not leave out the fact that we're looking quite optimistic about building a hydrogen network in the UK. When is always the question. Okay, sort of back to what are we doing and what are we bringing? We're offering to have a look at the physics and the economics of one of these conversions. So just to look is the first step. Doesn't take long, doesn't take a lot of effort, using basic reservoir engineering data. So the gas composition is very important. The depth of the reservoir is really important, of course, for the costs of the few injection wells you're going to need to drill. So this kind of the data in terms of the temperature of the reservoir, the pressure of the reservoir originally and now, These kind of things are, again, not going to take weeks to find. It's very, very basic data. And therefore, we're saying to oil and gas companies, have a look, see, come and see the potential. And it does depend, because when they say what's the cost, it really does depend, as this audience will know, on the depth of the reservoir, the permeability of the reservoir, these kind of things, and the location of the reservoir can make quite a big range. But the point is, it's lower cost than blue hydrogen, where you've just got to pay to take the CO2 away somewhere for remote storage. Here you get the benefits of pressure maintenance and extra product coming out compared to if you'd done CCS to make normal blue hydrogen. So moving on from offering screening, we also, not only for screening an existing gas field, also if you're looking to acquire, your company's looking to acquire somebody else's gas properties, then you can also run this quick screening economics to see the upside value in future of turning those gas fields into hydrogen fields. So it can be very helpful just to help as an input into how much you would like to bid to acquire something from somebody. So we're bringing partners who can do more detailed work to assess a reservoir. Again, for this audience, obviously the geology is very important, and our screening economics would have a discussion on the geology in terms of permeability, differences between the different layers, this kind of thing. Obviously, we want to avoid a super highly fractured carbonate reservoir where you would see the CO2, just disappearing only into the fractures, and potentially finding a route to the gas production wells. So that will be the sort of reservoir we would tend to avoid. So we're really keen to find simple reservoirs, but of course, if you do have a reservoir model already, you'd use that model of the gas field, and that's often the case in big important gas reservoirs. They already have a gas model, and we could, they can use that. The company can use that. So, and then we bring other industry players to assess all the important things like the materials of the pipeline for the hydrogen export. Great partners that I know and have worked with in carbon capture, and also on the hydrogen production side. What's quite new is you can also sometimes combine hydrogen production and carbon capture in one unit, and that will bring the cost down another 25 to 30%. So all of this thing is that's why we talk about an ecosystem. It's software, but it's also, because it hasn't been done before, we want to bring trusted partners into play as well to work with the oil and gas companies. So on the right, some other things that are not the actual conversion. This is around the financing of this transition. The contribution of the new Article 6.4, 6.1 and 2, the fact that was finally agreed last year's COP, then we can now use the results of that voluntary carbon market, but also looking towards a commitment on carbon reductions. This obviously does have permanent storage, and we're looking to have that methodology endorsed by one of the endorsers of carbon capture, carbon credit methodologies. It's a big thing. We did scope out doing this ourselves to do the methodology around this upstream hydrogen, but then there's also a body who is now looking to make a hydrogen methodology, and so we're adding into the work that they're doing on creating a hydrogen methodology. And then also, again, specialist topic, but in terms of really important topic about the global north, helping to support projects in the global south, the conversion of gas wells, somewhere like in East Africa, for example, rather than telling people, you can't have your fossil fuel income for your country anymore, those jobs are going to disappear, much better to convert the gas fields into hydrogen producers and maintain the jobs and the income for the country. And that has been identified as a real issue by very senior people that we've talked to who are involved in the developing world, that it's just a bit unrealistic to encourage solar and wind projects and then to expect the country just to turn off the taps which are very, very, high income taps for the country, and not also do oil and gas. So this is a bit of an offering to say and both, rather than a decision between renewables and fossil fuels. Let's encourage both and the jobs and income that comes from that. So where is this applicable? This map shows the countries with a national hydrogen strategy. Each quarter, there are more countries announcing these hydrogen strategies, and then also countries with major gas resources. And the text there on the left, we were very pleased to get the attention of the OPEC Secretariat, who really believes that their members, this is aligned with their members in terms of maintaining the value of the assets long into the future, decades into the future. So we did an interview, Alex and myself, for the OPEC Bulletin, which, if you don't know it, is a really informative bulletin, and I would recommend it to read the latest of what's happening. And there's a really good emphasis on decarbonisation in this bulletin. So we were quite surprised when they published the whole interview that we did. It covers sort of 7 pages or something, and I think we were expecting 1 or 2 page little summary, but it was quite pleasing that they really got the topic, and encouraging their members to consider the conversion of gas fields to hydrogen production. This is again our sort of own internal stuff, but it's just to say that there is a lot of potential, and I think the thing to point out is the carbon avoidance, as it were, taking fossil fuels off the market and putting a clean fuel onto the market. Really, even if you go one gas field at a time, as we know that they're quite big, some of them, and you can really look to scale up in a very logical way, one gas field at a time. But we're starting in the kind of obvious places, probably for this audience, in the Middle East, North Africa, Asia. It was the Americas, all a little confusing, but on the other hand, even in America at the moment, with the cancellation of many of the hydrogen subsidies, converting a gas field into a hydrogen field might not need subsidies. And that's what we're saying to companies: screen your gas fields and have a look. You might not even need a subsidy. This might stand on its own, have its own business case within the company, and therefore you would finance it in the normal way you would finance a oil and gas project. I touched on this earlier, but for this audience probably is of interest, the fact that if you inject CO2 into the base of a gas field, it does stay low because of basic physics. The fact that it is a large molecule and it doesn't have a great tendency to mix up over the lifetime of a gas field with the gas itself. And for reservoir engineers, there is piston-like gravity stable displacement is what is the result. So you can get incredibly high recovery factors by injecting CO2. And why don't we do this all the time? It's because CO2 sometimes is quite hard to come by, and people in the US have been doing enhanced oil recovery, buying CO2 from natural CO2 wells and taking it vast distances across America to use it for enhanced oil recovery. And that's because oil, of course, is more valuable than gas, but also because oil recovery factors naturally are so much lower than the natural recovery factors for gas. So let's say if gas is 80% natural recovery, then oil, you'll be lucky if you get 30-40% recovery. So the enhancement from oil is huge potentially, but at huge cost and huge number of wells you have to drill. The enhancement for gas is less, let's say 5-10% extra, but you don't have to drill many wells. Being gas, it's quite an effective process, but it previously hasn't really stood up on its own just for enhanced gas recovery. But that's not what we're promoting. we're enhancing some recovery, but it's in order for that 100% to be turned into hydrogen. So yes, we're enhancing recovery, the health of that balloon, but that, balloon in the end, there is still, some gas leaving it, which is the clean fuel hydrogen that we're selling. So look forward to questions on that in particular, because I think it's quite a remarkable thing that the physics helps in these three quite significant ways. And it is an interesting question that we don't see more of it. To mention one project in Indonesia, the Tangguh field, BP are investing very heavily in terms of billions of dollars in doing enhanced gas recovery on that field with naturally occurring gas. So they take the contaminated gas to the shore, and then they take out the CO2. They're building a new pipeline to take the CO2 back to the Tangguh reservoirs, and then they'll be injecting CO2 low in those reservoirs in order to maintain pressure, get more gas out, not to have to be flaring all that naturally occurring CO2. So then the next stage from that, would they convert some of that into hydrogen and then use that hydrogen for clean local industries? Those local industries could make clean products, and then Indonesia could be exporting those clean products made using hydrogen for combustion or molecules for products to Europe, and then not having the problems of tariffs being input because of the CBAM regulations, starting very soon. So BP are not doing that. I'm just using that as an example to say enhanced gas recovery, whilst not done very often, it is a thing. It is understood. It is known. And again, we'd love to hear from anybody in this meeting who has experience with enhanced gas recovery. Really keen to hear from you, because not many people on the planet have it. And if you do, it would be great to talk to you separately. So I've been talking about the onshore situation, and because we're in the UK, I did want to just touch on the offshore situation. I kind of have already with the Indonesia example, that you bring your gas in and you put the CO2 back out again. And the difference between the way I was describing it with the Tangguh field in Indonesia is indeed that you make hydrogen using steam methane reforming, and then you sell hydrogen to your local industry. So that's if you're doing one offshore field. And then if you have a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of sea carbon capture projects, as in the UK, a CCS cluster, it does look slightly more complicated. So I've worked with Teesside for the last 8 or so years. So I unashamedly draw it as the East Coast cluster here. So you have a very large industrial complexes, Teesside and the Humber, and we'll be doing a cluster of multiple carbon capture projects, and then a very large pipeline taking large volumes of CO2 offshore. But one day a tee-off can be made from the main CO2 pipeline, and you can take just the right volumes of CO2 to maintain the reservoir pressure. And so, that's where there is a slightly more complicated offshore version. Probably won't go through this. We're dealing with a lot of companies and talking to a lot of people and going to a lot of places. I think I've covered this already in terms of the value to the oil and gas companies. This just brings it all together in terms of the lower cost and the job retentions and reducing emissions. So again, one gas field at a time, the numbers can go up pretty quickly in terms of the abated carbon dioxide. So really, that's it. We're looking to transform the oil and gas industry from within. A lot of people, don't like hearing that. But again, for those of us who've worked in the industry, we know we have some skills that we can use in a new way. And this is what we're promoting, that people will look at decarbonizing, because it can also make the company more attractive to investors in the future, particularly those mid-sized ones. So thank you very much, and look forward to all your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Belinda. Okay, so yeah, we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A box if you want to, and if you want to stop slide sharing, then
Yeah.
So I'm just looking up people's names on LinkedIn to see who you are. So Matthew Booth is with Baringa Partners, so he's asking what happens or about the CO2 coming into the production wells. I guess you covered that on the gravity, but I suppose it also depends on the reservoir engineering. There's obviously a
And
risk, but
geology, I mean,
yeah.
mainly on the, yes, obviously the fluid flow, the reservoir engineering, but indeed the permeability contrasts. So that's why we partner with, you know, a company who'll do more detailed modeling of that, or you would use the model that the company already has of their gas field to model and look at that. So there's all kinds of things by injecting at the edges of the field. You know, you've got the time factor. It's a long, long way away. It does stay deep, does stay low, but then, you know, you'd want to model this, and then you could do things like not perforating the higher permeability zones if there were, you know, high permeability streaks, thief zones, as they're called. So all of this would be very top of mind. So, I mean, it's a very, you know, normal first question, and it's a good one. But that's exactly what we would hope to be discussing with the company, and then giving a first pass screening, and then either provide a company to do the detailed modeling, or, you know, work with them, or they would just do it themselves, the modeling, to see that. And then in the end, if it does come the CO2 to the producing gas wells, well, yes, if you've got some down dip ones, you could close those in, or you could again partially close off perforations where the CO2 was breaking through, and then again getting sort of further up dip to the gas wells, you then back in the situation that you have with enhanced oil recovery, which is the CO2 comes out with the gas, and then you separate it, and then you inject it back in again down for it to take, you know, a few more years to get back to the gas fields. So kind of the worst case is you do what the industry does normally in enhanced oil recovery, which is recycle some CO2. The CO2, just to say, also by injecting CO2, you're also helping to reduce water influx. So that's another benefit I didn't make. So again, you know, we're used to in industry, later in life, you have to recycle an awful lot of water. So by injecting CO2, you will also reduce water ingress into the wells, which is, you know, also a problem. But one deals with it as industry. We know how to separate out and then put it back down in the ground again.
Oh, very good. Okay, so David Puckett is EOR specialist, senior reservoir engineer with Orcadian Energy in London. How about converting electricity offshore, and you could connect with windmill grids while you're storing the CO2? I suppose you could do that, but it's another step. More complexity, is it?
Yeah, that's a great and brilliant and different idea altogether. So yeah, we need all of those ideas, and I think electricity offshore is a very exciting alternative. So this one is more just bring the gas onshore as today, do the things that you do with the gas, you know, today, but do it with hydrogen. So it's kind of different from switching to electricity, which again, let's say, great idea, but separate.
Yeah, doing everything offshore is talking about now. So actually generating electricity offshore, I guess that's, yeah. So.
Yeah, from gas, but you know, that's nothing to do with hydrogen. So we're
True,
gas
yeah.
to hydrogen, but you can do gas to power. And in fact, we
Mm.
partner with a company that David might be interested in called Trigen, and they do gas to power. So look up Trigen, or, you know, ask me later for them. So yeah, it's an offering to a country. Do you want gas to hydrogen, gas to power? What mix of it do you want? You know, so it's a great strategic question.
Oh, very good. So we've got reservoir engineering question now. Is this from Nigel Greatorex, Global Industry Business Manager with Carbon Capture at ABB? So the thing is, if you're putting the CO2 in a gas field, so the gas field's at low pressure and the CO2 is at high pressure, and the gas expands and could cool down and free. I guess people model all these kind of things. I don't know if there's a. I know for
Yeah, I
high.
mean, maybe in there, Nigel, there's the question as well. We wouldn't tend, unless it was a giant gas field, to do it very late in the life of the field, because that wouldn't justify the investment for the company, you know, in all this kit that they're putting at the gas processing side. So you would look for a field that's, you know, relatively, you know, got lots of life left in it, because it's got to pay back for that investment. But again, you know, depending indeed on the depth and the pressure, you would put the CO2 at the appropriate pressure. You wouldn't be injecting any higher than the reservoir pressure. So yeah. but there's some detail in there which I won't go into now. But it's great question again. Happy to chat about it.
Oh, very good. So we're going to politics now with David Puckett again. So would the UK government more likely give a special gas license if you use this technology? I don't know if you want to answer that one or not.
Well, I mean, we're just starting discussions in the UK. And I've had really encouraging noises from very senior people that I've worked with for many years on developing the CCS business model, the hydrogen business model here in the UK. And we were not aiming to do a first project in the UK, but I, did get encouragement that we should be looking. So if you do have some fields in the UK onshore, they were very, very enthusiastic that even within the existing petroleum legislation, the Petroleum Act, that is, one can take gas out and put gas back into your own reservoir with your own license. You're not taking it across the countryside. You're not, it's not CCS as in taking it, transporting it, and storing it. It's just a circle within your own, license area. So the feeling, which we need to check with the EPA, but we weren't doing that until we've got the first clusters, like just definitely going, because of course our focus is offshore storage. And that was the drawing that I showed, that you could tee off some CO2 later to a producing North Sea gas field to maintain the life of that producing North Sea gas field. And then those molecules, you could designate them and just say, okay, that's all going to be making hydrogen onshore, and then they will make clean products, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a UK model, definitely. And I think, that again, whether you get a license quicker or smarter or, whatever, be interesting to test it, because as I say, I've had from two quite senior people, within DESNZ, encouraging us to apply for a hydrogen business model to do a pilot in the UK on an onshore gas field. So yeah, just starting discussions on that. So if you know anyone or know yourself of someone with an onshore gas field, really happy to talk to them, because it would be nice to do a project in my own backyard, as it were. But our focus, as I say, has been more Middle East and further afield. But very happy to talk to anyone about a UK project.
Oh, very good. So Peter Captain, I haven't heard from you for a long time. Nice to hear from you. We've got a tricky question for you here, though. We've seen a spate of hydrocarbon project cancellations recently. How do you think it impacts the Convert World's business model? I guess it depends what country we're talking about. They're not cancelling projects in the Middle East, are they, with hydrocarbons? But they maybe in.
Yeah, interesting context. I mean, I'm reading about massive new discoveries, offshore Namibia. Like, to me, there's like too many new discoveries of hydrocarbons. There's too much coming onto the market. I don't know, but it's an interesting question. I don't know. I have not seen that. I'm reading more the hydrogen news and seeing the cancellation of green hydrogen projects, due to that problem I was saying about putting value chains together, and people not wanting to commit to long-term hydrogen pricing, understandably. Whereas, when it's your existing customers buying hydrogen, you can, link it to the gas price, or you can, make some arrangement with the customers that in terms of hydrogen pricing. You don't necessarily have to have a fixed cost, which seems to be, the go-to model for green hydrogen projects.
Oh,
But yeah, great. If they're cancelling new hydrocarbon developments, that's great, because there's plenty of existing gas fields. So there's something like 7 gigatons of CO2 if you did this conversion on all the gas fields that exist today. So yeah, we don't need any more, I would say. We're trying to decarbonize, and I don't think that will be too detrimental to our business model, which is to approach oil and gas companies about their existing gas fields.
Oh, sorry, correction from Peter, who actually meant hydrogen and not hydrocarbon.
Yes, okay. So hence my response. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so no, I mean, we're cheaper hydrogen that we're bringing into the market. And so I think it is that comparison, that alternatives table, how much cheaper is it for your reservoir to make this conversion compared to what people are expecting in your country to be, the cost of a green hydrogen project. So you can make that comparison. Obviously, you can make the comparison very easily with the blue hydrogen project as well. So again, those discussions are, about comparison, and again, the cost is all about cost. And if you're coming in with a lower cost product, usually that's the start of a good conversation.
Oh, very good. So we've got a chemical engineering question next. So Luca Anzalone is with SINSEF in Norway, asking about the flexibility of steam methane reforming methane to hydrogen. Can you turn it on and off, or can you make hydrogen when you need it? I guess most chemical processes prefer to be continuously on, but you're not a chemical engineer, but I don't know if you want to.
Well, I mean, that's the advantage of this process is it's 24/7 on, just like the gas
Hmm.
field today is 24/7 on and reliable and supplying industry with reliable energy. And so the SMR equally is on all the time and no, there's nothing. So we miss out the whole storage piece, the cost of storing hydrogen or hydrogen coming in trucks or hydrogen intermittency. All of that is like, we don't do that. What we do is just reliable continuous production of hydrogen.
Yeah, because a lot of the end users, I guess you're talking about refineries or gas
Yeah,
glass companies who use a continuous stream of glass because they're on 24 hours a day. And
absolutely. Yeah. So that's very much the emphasis is the traditional heavy industries, the energy intensive users. It's nothing to do with individual customers or buses or anything like that. It's the heavy end of the users.
yeah, very good. I mean, the question going through my mind was about the economics. So you're going to pay more for this than just selling gas, but also you've got clients who will probably want to pay more for hydrogen, but it's not happening right now, but may in 5 to 10 years. So say in the shipping industry, we keep hearing about this future market for hydrogen, which is all put in legislation, but it's not there right now. It's there very soon. But I guess somehow all this has to be modeled somehow so people can see that they can make money, and when, which year, 5 years, 10 years in the future, they can make money. I suppose you have to map all this out, don't you?
Well, I mean, yeah, we haven't talked about the whole hydrogen economy and how fast it's going to grow. That's, sort of another webinar. But to say again, if something's a lower cost, it's more likely to grow the volumes quicker. Also, we concentrate a little bit more on the acceleration that you get in the first 5 years. So you're going to accelerate gas production. Your gas wells will have more life. They'll have, more production because they're not declining like this on a, straight line if it's a depletion drive reservoir. So business as usual will give you this, and then the decline will be a lot less, depending how many extra CO2 volumes. You've got the chemistry from the hydrogen production CO2 byproduct. You've got the carbon capture from the existing energy production today. You've got some gas flares you can potentially take out and add volumes. So all of this is about getting more out in the early years, getting more gas out. So it's not just the fact that the hydrogen is going to be costly. It's also get more product because of the reinjection of the CO2.
Oh, very good. So we've got a question from Justin Schaefer. I've just found you on LinkedIn. Licensing manager, blue hydrogen and gasification with Shell. Oh, there we go. Does this concept work with other hydrogen production technologies such as POX? I don't even know what POX is. I don't know if you do you know what POX is for hydrogen production?
Pyrolysis,
There we go. So
maybe.
partial oxidation, partial oxidation in hydrogen production. Well, I suppose it would if I mean, do you want to? Is that? I guess you haven't really got into that part of it so much, is it? You're more.
You could the hydrogen production unit. We were just calling it hydrogen production unit. So steam methane reforming, we say because it's the well known. Most countries have a steam methane reformer already. They've got operators. So the idea again is to bring something at a new location, but not new site, not new technology. So SMR is kind of like the default. But if you have a hydrogen production that has calcium looping, has some other process to make the hydrogen, that's fine. Absolutely. So yes, you could use it with other hydrogen production processes.
Oh, very good. Sanjay, I don't really follow your question here. Maybe it's a sort of chat comment. Sanjay is with a geophysicist in India. Perhaps you can sort of clarify what your question is there. But David Hughes, our resident reservoir engineer, the Salt Fleet B gas field in Humberside is a field which I've thought in the past may benefit from CO2 EGR. Not sure if it's big enough for a blue hydrogen project. So that's a tip to maybe follow up on, I suppose, isn't it?
No, I mean, I think that's a good clarification there to say it doesn't have to be big enough for a blue hydrogen project because it'll just go in with other volumes at Humberside. So in terms of if you're making blue hydrogen already there from gas with CCS, the normal blue hydrogen, this gas would just be more gas coming in to make more hydrogen. So it doesn't have to match sort of one for one when you're offshore. You just, it's what benefits is the gas field itself. So in this case, the salt fleet I don't know the name, gas field, it would last longer. It'll have more life. The economics will be better for the gas field, and it will produce more gas in. And then you can you can designate and say, this is what I'm doing with it, that I'm making hydrogen. And even if it's going into a blue hydrogen project, that's fine. It's just more gas coming in. So you don't have to justify a $2 billion dollar blue hydrogen project, to have a big enough gas field. It's very much something that you can do smaller scale, and if necessary, you can, I'm mixing between onshore and offshore. Again, this is an offshore one, and what comes onshore is gas still. It's not hydrogen. So you're making the hydrogen onshore, but wouldn't have to justify a whole project. You would add into another green hydrogen project with a modular SMR if you wanted to have it standalone, as it were. So again, these modular things are really coming on trucks. That's quite new and quite good economics to right size your production of hydrogen.
Oh, that's very interesting. So now we're going to Nigeria, Ubon EU or EYOI. So he's a QHSE management professional with Navanti Oil and Gas Company in Port Harcourt. So that the relevance to Nigeria offshore, where most of gas has already been flared. I suppose it depends if there could be a market for hydrogen in Nigeria, but you sort of touched on that. Do you want to go a bit more into that?
Well, I mean, there's so many suitable gas fields in Nigeria. So I presume what this is talking about is associated gas from oil fields. So if they're, huge amounts and they should have been brought onshore, they would be valuable anyway. So it would just depend. But in terms of, onshore Nigeria and offshore with the fantastic gas fields, these gas fields, you can bring the gas onshore and make hydrogen within, the move to make clean products in Nigeria. So there are applications. There's great fields. Obviously, we all know that in Nigeria, and many that would be suitable for doing this kind of circular method to put the CO2 back down into the gas field to get more gas out to make more hydrogen.
You'd need a hydrogen market in Nigeria, though. Presumably there isn't any.
You would.
I guess maybe 10 years. They sell the low carbon fuels to us, perhaps, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. Or products. So, it's coming, and obviously early days for all of us, but Nigeria is somewhere to aim for sure in the future.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And then the packaging of the service, that's also, I mean, I guess if you've got an enormous oil and gas company, they can do it all themselves. We're thinking more about smaller gas producers, and this comes as a package. I think that's quite an important part of the story, isn't it? Do you think?
The screening, we're just saying, because the software's available today, yes, big companies can build their own version. Of course they can, and we would love them and encourage them to do so. But we're not going straight to small companies, no, because it needs to be a company that's comfortable with major projects. So these people on the call, who've asked questions, these, really suitable big companies working with significant oil and gas companies with significant fields. So you can't expect a small company, mum and pop company to do carbon capture and hydrogen production. So it's still going to be the big companies that we're working with. And as I say, the front end that we're offering, and then the partnerships and the trusted, engineering companies, et cetera, et cetera. In the end, we'll build a one-stop shop thing. And we've got the sort of front end of that going already to take projects through to investment decisions. But we are in discussions with very big companies as well. So yeah,
very good. Peter Captain's got an add-on point about the Nigeria, but the enormous Dangote refinery that's just opened. I suppose they could be a customer for the gas and maybe make low carbon products in the future. I guess if the low carbon rules.
correct.
Yeah, Very good. So Ying Guo, so on LinkedIn, she's Senior Business Developer, IOR, CCUS at Norse Norwegian Research Centre in Stavanger. So comparing this hydrogen use pathways. So we're making hydrogen on site and exporting it to users. We're using gas at the user's site and storing CO2, making gas to electricity, CO2 storage. How to compare them? I suppose it all depends on the specific case. I suppose there's no easy answer to that. I guess just another point saying it's more expensive to transport hydrogen long distance compared to natural gas, isn't it? Hmm.
Yes, but that's indeed the case. But if you can reuse the natural gas line, it's not much more expensive. You might need a bit of extra compression, but you've got all the cost savings compared to blue hydrogen that you don't need to take the CO2 100 kilometers away to store it, and all the other benefits I've mentioned of production increases, acceleration of gas production, etc. So all of this goes into the software, and then that's the economics that we give to companies.
Yeah, I mean, the point underneath, there's no right or wrong answer, but the point is there's different ways of doing this, and you're proposing a way that people aren't thinking about so much, but you've got to do your detailed economic modeling, I guess, to find.
Well, yeah, we're proposing to do that economic modeling with the basic costs in there for the modular units, for any extra compression of hydrogen and etc. What goes into the model to give a screening, a very broad brush answer to how attractive this might be to a company to make these conversions in that country with a reservoir at that depth and and that pressure, etc.
Yeah, she's adding a point about compression of hydrogen and long distance transport of hydrogen. I mean, you don't need to compress and do long distance transport of hydrogen so much with this. I mean, the idea is that hydrogen
No,
only
it's
goes a
not going to
short.
be very high. It'll be the same, whatever, 70 bar, 90 bar, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, or could be even less if the hydrogen consumer is very close to the hydrogen production facilities. And yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing that makes these projects work better, isn't it? I think, isn't it? Or if you've got
Well,
a
again, what we're doing is going back to the source and, making big volumes of hydrogen to sell to multiple customers, just the same way they, do for natural gas today. It's to try and make it as easy and, as it were, nothing's easy, but that again, not to bring too much new technology in, that this is normal oil and gas project planning, with all its complexities, but it's not introducing renewable project, for example. It's back to it's the core skills that the oil and gas company has anyway, and it's using those in a new way.
Yeah, we might see hydrogen networks, just so like we see gas networks now. I think that's another plan I've seen from National Grid
That's
in
very
Britain.
much the plan in Germany, and they've already injecting hydrogen into that network. And the UK, it's still on the drawing board, but there's a lot of maps and a lot of lines being drawn and modelled already for many years.
Yeah, so if that happens, it'll be obvious gas companies should be converting gas into hydrogen because.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, we can finish there, I think. Oh,
Okay.
Ubon Iya from Nigeria. Can hydrogen production package be integrated into petrochemicals refinery? Yes, I guess there's refineries thinking about running on hydrogen, I think, aren't they? Do you have any thoughts about? You can run a refinery on hydrogen just as you can run it on natural gas, I think, can't you? It's just a fuel
Well,
or
you
use
might
it as a
also
feedstock.
want the hydrogen, the molecule, to make your product.
Yes, as
So
well. Yeah.
it's both, yeah. So that's where most hydrogen today, I mean, not so most, but a lot of hydrogen today is indeed used in petrochemicals to make more valuable products.
Wow, got a follow-up point from Yingu. Yeah, I was talking about Schnovit. I was Googling Schnovit when you were speaking because I thought in
Mm.
Schnovit the CO2 is not injected into the gas reservoir, although Ying would know since she's in Stavanger.
Well, you think she would, so
Yes,
that's new
yes.
information if that's the case, because I thought it was a CCS project, storage only. So I think that's with slight CO2 volume increase at producer. Worthwhile looking at host direct. But that's completely interesting, and I will look up if there's any Snowbit data, because normally we all quote that as a long life, very experienced CCS project, and not re-injected. I understood it was injected into an aquifer.
Wow. Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, I think that's opening a lot of doors and ideas. And thank you very much. Thanks for
Yeah,
the
we'll
interesting.
exchange more info. Thank you very much, Ying.
Yeah, very good. So we'll have the video. We'll send the video out to everybody as a link, and I can give you Belinda's contact details on an email going out to anyone if you want to follow up. But thanks ever so much, and that's the end of the webinar. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers. Bye bye.
Thank you.